Welcome back to the channel. Today we are telling the full detailed story of USS Albany, designated CG-10, a ship whose life reflects the rapid transformation of naval warfare during the Cold War. This is not just the story of a warship, but the story of how technology, strategy, and human dedication reshaped the United States Navy in an age defined by tension, innovation, and constant readiness for a conflict that thankfully never became global war. USS Albany began her life in a very different era of naval combat. She was originally laid down during World War II as a heavy cruiser of the Baltimore class. When she was commissioned in 1946, the world was just emerging from the devastation of global war. Naval guns still ruled the seas, and Albany was built with powerful artillery designed to bombard enemy ships and shore targets. However, the world was changing faster than anyone could have predicted. The rise of jet aircraft, guided missiles, and nuclear weapons soon made traditional gun cruisers less effective in modern warfare. During her early years, USS Albany served in a peacetime navy that was adjusting to its new role as a global force. She participated in training exercises, goodwill visits, and fleet operations, helping maintain American presence across the oceans. Life aboard the ship followed a strict rhythm of watches, drills, and maintenance. Sailors lived in tight quarters, surrounded by steel bulkheads, machinery noise, and the constant smell of fuel and saltwater. Despite the hardships, there was pride in serving aboard a powerful cruiser that represented American strength and stability in uncertain times. As the Cold War intensified, it became clear that ships like Albany needed to evolve or risk becoming obsolete. The Soviet Union was developing long-range bombers and anti-ship missiles capable of striking fleets from afar. The U.S. Navy responded with a bold idea: convert existing cruisers into guided missile ships capable of defending entire task forces from aerial threats. USS Albany was selected for one of the most ambitious conversions in naval history. In the late 1950s, Albany was taken out of active service and entered the shipyard for a complete transformation. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Her massive gun turrets were removed, her superstructure was torn down, and her internal spaces were redesigned from the keel up. When she emerged, she was almost unrecognizable. USS Albany had become a guided missile cruiser, reclassified as CG-10, armed with Talos and Tartar surface-to-air missile systems and equipped with powerful radar arrays that dominated her skyline. This conversion marked a turning point not only for Albany, but for naval warfare itself. She was no longer a gunship meant to fight at close range. She was now a floating missile battery and command center, capable of detecting enemy aircraft hundreds of miles away and coordinating complex defensive operations. Her combat information center became the brain of the ship, where radar operators, weapons officers, and commanders worked together in a high-pressure environment filled with glowing screens, radar sweeps, and constant radio chatter. When USS Albany returned to service in 1962, she entered a navy that was on the front lines of the Cold War. Her new role placed her at the heart of major strategic operations. One of her most significant moments came during the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the most dangerous confrontations in human history. As the United States and the Soviet Union stood on the brink of nuclear war, Albany operated as part of the naval forces enforcing the blockade around Cuba. During those tense days, every radar contact mattered. Every unidentified aircraft or ship could potentially trigger a catastrophic chain of events. Sailors aboard USS Albany worked around the clock, fully aware that a single mistake could have consequences far beyond their ship. The pressure was immense, but discipline and training kept the crew focused. Though shots were never fired in anger, Albany played her part in demonstrating American resolve and readiness during a moment that tested the world's nerves. Following the Cuban Missile Crisis, USS Albany continued to serve as a flagship for fleet commanders, particularly in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. Her advanced communications systems allowed admirals to direct large naval forces from her decks. She participated in NATO exercises, joint operations with allied navies, and patrols that signaled unity against potential aggression. Wherever she sailed, her towering missile launchers and radar antennas made a powerful statement. Life aboard the missile cruiser was demanding but fascinating. Sailors had to master complex electronics and missile systems that were still relatively new and constantly evolving. Training was continuous, and mistakes were not tolerated. Missile drills simulated incoming attacks, forcing crews to react in seconds. Below decks, engineers kept the ship's engines and power systems running smoothly, knowing that any failure could cripple the ship's ability to defend the fleet. Despite her advanced capabilities, USS Albany was not without limitations. Her missile systems required extensive maintenance, and the rapid pace of technological advancement meant that systems could become outdated quickly. The Navy invested heavily in upgrades to keep her relevant, but it was clear that the future belonged to newer designs built from the start as missile ships rather than converted gun cruisers. Even so, Albany remained a vital asset throughout the 1960s and 1970s. She continued to serve as a command ship, often flying the flag of senior naval leaders. Her presence during international crises and major exercises helped maintain stability in regions where tensions could flare at any moment. For the sailors who served aboard her, Albany was more than steel and electronics. She was a home, a workplace, and a symbol of responsibility in a dangerous world. As the Cold War progressed, naval strategy continued to evolve. Newer cruisers and destroyers entered service, equipped with more advanced missile systems and more efficient designs. By the late 1970s, USS Albany was beginning to show her age despite her impressive history. Maintaining her increasingly complex systems became more challenging and costly. Eventually, the decision was made to retire USS Albany from active service. She was decommissioned in 1980 after decades of service that spanned the transition from World War II-era gun warfare to the missile-dominated battlespace of the Cold War. For many veterans, the decommissioning marked the end of an era. Albany had been a pioneer, a testbed, and a frontline defender during some of the most critical moments of the 20th century. After decommissioning, USS Albany faced the fate common to many historic warships. She was placed in reserve for a time before eventually being sold for scrapping. Though her physical form was dismantled, her impact on naval history remains significant. The lessons learned from her conversion, operation, and limitations influenced future ship designs and the development of more integrated missile defense systems. Today, USS Albany is remembered as one of the most important transitional ships in U.S. Navy history. She represents a bold experiment at a time when the Navy was forced to adapt quickly to new threats and technologies. Her story is a reminder that innovation often comes through transformation, risk, and learning from experience. When we look back at USS Albany, we see a ship that lived two very different lives. First as a traditional heavy cruiser built for gun battles, and later as a guided missile cruiser at the cutting edge of Cold War defense. Few ships have undergone such a dramatic change or played such a crucial role in shaping the future of naval warfare. Behind the technology and strategy were the thousands of sailors who stood watch on her decks, monitored radar screens late into the night, and maintained her complex systems under constant pressure. Their dedication ensured that USS Albany could fulfill her mission during some of the most uncertain years in modern history. This is the story of USS Albany CG-10, a ship that bridged generations of warfare, stood guard during moments when the world held its breath, and helped pave the way for the modern Navy we know today. Thank you for watching, and if you value powerful stories of naval history, sacrifice, and transformation, stay connected to the channel, because these stories deserve to be remembered.